I think we can all remember back when we were in school and there were these certain movies we would watch that were staples in classrooms, mainly on books you read in class. Stuff like Holes, if you were reading Holes, some of the Chris Van Allsburg books, and of course, Thomas. No, I wish. I'm actually talking about Charlotte's Web. This movie is an adaptation of the novel by E.B. White, published in 1952, over 71 years ago. Wow! It follows the story of Wilbur, who is a spring pig, and he befriends this spider named Charlotte, and she writes words on her web so people will think Wilbur is like a super pig or something to keep him from dying. They end up going to the fair and he wins a prize, and a bunch of other wacky stuff happens too. It was well received when it released, and that praise has only grown as the years have gone on. It's become a classic. There's some deeper elements of it too, like growing out of childhood innocence and change and death and stuff, but that's too much to go into for today. What matters to our story though, is that in 1973 it was made into an animated movie. I think I saw it a long time ago at school, but I don't remember much about it. Maybe I'll look at it someday. But 33 years later, it was adapted again, this time as a live-action film. It was cool back then, that was before Disney made everyone get tired of these things. It was filmed in Ballin, Victoria, and Melbourne, Australia. It was released on December 15th, 2006, the time where most real pigs were being slaughtered. It got good reviews, people liked the simple, straightforward plot and the cute, wacky barn animals, though I think we all know who really carried this whole movie. It made $150 million against an $85 million budget, not a huge profit, but still not a failure by any means. But before we look at it, let's check into the box art train station. Peep peep! Why are none of you excited? Thank goodness it's in widescreen. I would have killed a pig if it wasn't. We got Wilbur here front and center. He might look happy, but I can see the pain in his eyes. On the back, an instant classic. Literally every movie has the same review. They need to start getting more creative. 2 thumbs up. Again, a very common review. Step up your game, Richard Roper and Asia Tyler, guest critic Ebert and Roper. What? Fern's down here hugging Wilbur and he's like, please kill me. And of course all that nonsense they copy and paste from each and every one of these movies. Do they even change any of this information? Well, I'm not gonna check, and remember, you can always check out the soundtrack on Sony Classical. Honestly, 8 out of 10. I like how simplistic the front is. If I saw this on a Target shelf as a child, I would probably want it. And now, let's start the movie. So the movie begins with this illustration that looks just like the book. Wow, already a 10 out of 10. We see this little brat Fern, and she's pretty interested because this barn light is on. Well, maybe she wants to be a future electrician. She storms outside in the rain, just in time to see all these little baby pigs. Wow, now it's an 8 out of 10. This pig right here is having a hard time getting some milk. If you could just move out of the way, bro. This guy isn't having it though. Well, now he's definitely not gonna get milk, not if you pick him up like that. Fern's like, I guess this is her dad, and he tells them this pig's about to be your breakfast because his mom can't feed him. Fern tells him she'll feed him. That is messed up on so many levels. Oh, you're using a bottle. I thought you were using... Never mind. I like this little cutaway joke where after she says she won't let him hurt the pig, it cuts to some bacon being fried. Props to the editor on that one, but man, please clean your skillet. Fern's brother Avery is mad because she gets a pig, and he asks if he can have one too. Well, was there a tragic story before this movie took place where Avery wanted a pig but never got one? Whatever. He gets over it, and Fern decides to bring the pig to school because it definitely won't suffocate in your jacket. You're totally the right person to care for this pig, Fern. It's definitely not like you only got it last night and have no experience. Oh no. The pig causes a bunch of noise in her desk, and when the teacher makes her open it, pop goes the pig. Is this a reoccurring thing? Has she done this before? Because everyone just laughs, and this teacher gives her this look like, now Fern, didn't we talk about this? Her mom comes and gets her, and alright, this is getting absurd. A stroller? Fern probably didn't even have a stroller. You think her family could afford one when they can't even afford new pots and pans? She's giving the pig a bath. The pig's name is Wilbur, so that's what I'll be calling him from now on. Her dad tells her, I want bacon. But then her mom suggests they give the pig to her Uncle Homer, who lives across the street. Why didn't you do that in the first place? You were so hesitant on giving her the pig, you could have just taken Wilbur there from the beginning, dummy. Well, they take him there now, and the narrator tells us about the barn and how ordinary it is. They love using the word ordinary in this movie. Was that like the writer's favorite word? She tells the pig bye, the pig says good riddance, I hate you, and then she runs off to school. But Wilbur's like, nope, I have separation anxiety, and he starts running into the fence, and oh no, the animals talk. Why do I keep getting drawn to movies with animated live action animals? In this movie, they're not terrible, they're not great either, but they're suitable. See, I can use big words too. Wilbur eventually manages to escape, but it's kind of pointless because he immediately goes back inside the pen when Homer gives him some slop. He does see the smokehouse though, and even though he doesn't know what it's for, he still gets a bad feeling from it. Pigs can sense these kinds of things. What, if Fern can be a pig expert, then so can I. All the animals tell him how dumb he is, and the next day it's raining, which is good news for Wilbur because that means he can play in the mud. And the way he keeps talking it up, it sounds like it's the most amazing thing ever. I'm not impressed. He tries to get the other animals to play with him, but they're like, no, lol, you're gonna be food soon. Wilbur gets more food, and then we see the rat. His name is actually Templeton, but I like the rat better, plus he calls himself the rat.
The rat is happy.
Funnily enough, that was actually this movie's original slogan. He tells Wilbur that he's kinda gonna take all of his food from now on. Cool? Cool, bye. Fern tries to go see Wilbur at like 3 AM, but her mom won't let her, and because of that, Wilbur can't fall asleep. Alright, we get it, just shut up. He suddenly hears a voice that tells him to shut up. The voice tells him that if he goes to sleep right this very millisecond, then they'll reveal themselves tomorrow. She also uses the word converse, even though there's no way he'll know what that word means. He does go to sleep, but not without saying some more good nights.
Night. Night.
Why are you doing that? What is it even accomplishing? The next morning, Wilbur asks the stranger to please show themselves, and they do, and it's revealed it's a spider. Everyone in the barn is freaked out by this. Oh, you're barn animals. You've surely seen worse than that. We find out the spider is named Charlotte, and oh, hold that thought. She needs to prepare this fly. Ew, why did the animators think we wanted to see this in such great detail? But don't worry. She's not gonna eat the spider. She's just gonna drink its blood.
Just gonna set this right here.
She tells Wilbur she'll be his friend, and he gets way too excited. Are we sure there's not Red Bull in a slop? She also teaches him the word salutations. Oh my gosh, why are you so obsessed with big words? My theory is that Charlotte used to be a high school English teacher, but then she died and was reincarnated as a spider. Templeton shows up again, but all he does is insult Charlotte. That's sort of his whole character. We see a montage. The spring turns to summer, and the sheep finally lose their coats. Fern reads to all the animals, and the geese's eggs finally hatch. Except for one, and Templeton asks if he can take it. Well, that's a little creepy. Imagine you give birth to your child, they die shortly after, your friend is just like, can I have it? They let him take it though, and he takes it to his little underground house, but it starts rolling after him, but it actually doesn't break. Good for you, Templeton. Then we see Fern being annoying and shrieking. Avery says he found Charlotte and he's gonna catch her, and that sets Fern off.
No, Avery!
Wilbur stops him, but all that stomping around caused the rotten egg to finally break, and it stinks up the whole barn. Well, maybe you shouldn't have trusted the rat with the egg. Since Templeton's in a bad mood, he decides to be a jerk to Wilbur and tells him that when Christmas comes around, yep. This freaks Wilbur out, since he obviously doesn't want to die, but Charlotte tells him that she'll find some way to keep him alive. You see, if I inject my poison into all the humans... No, actually, she decides to write some pig using her web, and when Lurvy the farmhand sees this, he runs to tell Homer and his wife. I really like Homer. He seems like a nice beer-buying, law-abiding grandpa. They go and get their pastor, and then they slowly spill the beans to basically everyone in town, and then they all just stare at the web and take pictures of Wilbur. Fern is there too, and she sees this little boy. Why is this like 12-year-old kid working for a news company, or is this for his crappy internet blog? And while this spider web is pretty amazing, the people in the town eventually quit caring, and the farm animals need to brainstorm some new ways to keep Wilbur from becoming bacon. They eventually settle on the word terrific, and when Lurvy sees this, the same thing happens all over again. Everyone is once again talking about the pig. You know, if this happened today, people would probably just think it's a clout stunt and not care. But luckily for Wilbur, Twitter hasn't been invented yet, so he's able to garner all sorts of attention, and Mr. Zuckerman has taken advantage of the newfound popularity to do some business. And man, see, that's what I love about him. He's a hustler. He knows how to make that dough. But eventually the summer turns to fall, and Lurvy and Mr. Zuckerman start talking about fixing up the slaughterhouse for the winter, and when Fern hears this, she runs off immediately. I thought she was gonna go punch these two, to be honest. She seems to have a lot of rage built up. The animals go back to brainstorming, and the horse suggests they ask Templeton for help since he's also rummaging around at the dump, and he usually brings back trash of words on it. He agrees, but only because without Wilbur, he wouldn't get any precious slop. We also see Fern talking with her parents about what Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy said, but her dad's just like, he's not your pig anymore, and that's just how life is. And Fern's like, we'll see about that, and then she grabs a knife and, no, I'm just kidding, she just storms off. But when they're at school, she gets passed a flyer for a county fair, and they're accepting pigs. I wonder where this'll lead. We also see these two crows. They appeared earlier, they keep trying to steal this corn, but the scarecrow keeps scaring them away. We also arrive at the dump where Templeton is. How far away from this place is the farm? farm. It can't be very far, he's a rat, so he can't cover very much ground, but if it's close to the farm, it must stink even more than it already does. That must not be fun. They decide to chase him throughout the dump, but at least while he's hiding, he's able to find a word to give to Charlotte, and he's able to escape after the crows act really dumb. The word he got was radiant, and Charlotte decides that'll work, and couple that with Fern hiding the poster she got from school around the farm, things are looking up for Wilbur. The next morning, the whole town is back at the farm for like the third time. You think they would stop caring at this point, but I guess since it appears to be a small town, they probably don't have anything else going on. Mr. Zuckerman decides to enter Wilbur in the county fair, but later that night, Charlotte says she won't be going with him because she's expecting. Who knows what that could mean? The next day is a busy one. Mrs. Zuckerman washes Wilbur in buttermilk. Is that actually a thing? Oh, I guess it is. I had no idea. I always thought that was soap. Zuckerman is talking about how even if Wilbur doesn't win, he can just sell off his body parts to make the money back, which causes him to faint and Fern to scream. Charlotte also fails to catch this fly, and she falls to the ground. She decides she's gonna have to go to the fair after all, but the mother geese asks if she'll be able to go to the fair with Wilbur since she's expecting babies. I bet you're real shocked right now, aren't you? But she'll be fine. I've been through worse now. Where's that damn crate? Lurvy wakes up Wilbur with some water, and Charlotte tells Templeton he'll have to come since they need more words, and after hearing about all the delicious food at the fair, he decides to go, and they set off to the fair. When they get there, they set up their little area, and Charlotte goes over to investigate the pig next door. He's pretty chunky, so she asks Templeton to really choose a special word, and he says, "We'll see, 8 Eyes." We see a montage of Fern having fun at the fair, and when she goes to ride on the Ferris wheel, the boy from earlier shows up and pays for her ticket. Run while you still can. She's gonna want to raise a pig with you if you aren't careful. She's not the only one having fun, though. Templeton also seems to be having a blast. He bathes himself in french fries and runs around in the cotton candy machine. The sad part is that this has probably actually happened in real life, which is why you never eat anything at a county fair. Later that night, he's out searching for a word when those crows from earlier show up again. I don't really like them. I just don't find them funny, and their scenes are pretty skippable, but maybe that's just me. He sets a trap for them, and he finds the perfect word, humble, and the next morning, Charlotte puts it on the web. The family is pretty surprised when they see this, but Mr. Zuckerman's wife notices that the pig next to them already got the ribbon. They held the judging way earlier than they anticipated. It's over. Wow, this is actually a pretty great scene. It shows that no matter how hard you try, and no matter how well things seem to be going, you can't always win, and sometimes life happens. Wilbur's probably going to die, and Charlotte will have to learn that sometimes promises can't always be kept. Fern will be devastated, but everyone sees the web and gets excited, and Wilbur ends up winning a prize anyways. Well, Zuckerman gives a speech about Wilbur, and I think it's pretty safe to say that he's taken care of. Fern was also having fun for a new boyfriend, great. We also see Charlotte doing Charlotte things, and by that I mean making a giant egg, and Wilbur asks her what she's doing. She tells him that this is her magnum opus. Well, that's sad. This is her egg sack, and it houses all 512 of her babies. That is a lot of child support, no wonder the dad left. And then she tells Wilbur that they'll have to stay here at the fair because she's too sick to take them back to the farm. Wilbur tries to tell her that no, he'll carry her there and take care of her, but it's no use. No mere mortal being is any match against the elusive beast we call death, and I'm afraid Charlotte is dying. Wow, this is another great moment. It kind of makes up for the moment earlier. Sometimes people die. Life isn't always full of happiness. There's some sorrow and despair in it as well. But sometimes those moments make us better people in the long run. It's hard to change if you don't face challenges, and oh wait, there's Templeton. Well, that's gonna kill any tone that was previously there. He and Wilbur actually get into a pretty heated argument. Wilbur commands him to get Charlotte's egg sack so they can take it back to the farm. But Templeton goes off on Wilbur and tells him he's never been thanked for all the things he does, except he literally has. Which kind of ruins this moment entirely, and to make it worse, he didn't even learn anything, and neither does Wilbur. He only does it when Wilbur agrees to give him all of his slop, just proving that he hasn't changed. They really messed up his character, I feel like. But he takes the egg sack, and they all go home and leave Charlotte's dead body there. It'll probably get blown off of the fence and land on the ground, and tons of people will step on it, and then eventually somebody will find it and throw it away. So much for resting in peace. When they return back to the barn, the farm animals all take a moment of silence to think about Charlotte. Wilbur never tells them what happened. The words Charlotte died are never said. They can just tell from how he's acting. Even Templeton chokes up a little. The fall disappears and turns to winter, and Wilbur gets to see his first snowfall, though without Charlotte it just isn't the same. But hey, at least he isn't dinner. The animals also take turns watching over Charlotte's babies, which is really sweet. Eventually it becomes spring again, and Charlotte's babies hatch, and then they immediately all leave. The first thing I see when I'm born is that? No thank you. 3 of them decide to stay though, and Wilbur names them Joy, Arabia, and Nellie. Oink oink, the end. Charlotte's Web is a movie that has a vision, and for the most part succeeds in what it wants to do. Some things I don't like, Wilbur's voice is a little too high-pitched for my liking. I know he's a runt and also still pretty young, but I like his voice in the original animated adaptation better, honestly.
I don't want food. I want a friend. Will you play with me?
Also, the rat. Most of his character is great. He's probably my favorite one out of the whole movie. Literally every line he says is quotable.
Because I got a spitty hunk of pineapple upside down cake out there with my name on it.
My problem is his development. At the beginning of the movie, he's a selfish, rude asshole, but throughout the movie, we slowly see him start to change. He agrees to get words for Charlotte and all that, but then at the end, nothing happens. He argues he never gets thanked, but that whole argument is flawed because literally everyone is always nice to him.
Templeton, great name.
You're very kind. Templeton, please, be careful. If you keep this up, someone might think you care.
And yeah, sure, he watches over Charlotte's eggs, but then when they hatch, he tells them never to ask him to get them words and then dives into the slop. What I think would have been better and more impactful is if in the scene where Wilbur and Charlotte are talking, he overhears their conversation and decides to save her eggs by himself without being pressured to. And then maybe when the eggs hatch, he tells them, and if you ever need anything from the dump, just let your old Uncle Templeton know. I did the same thing for your mother. That would have been way better because it shows actual growth, but am I looking too deep into a CGI rat? Probably, but maybe you're looking too deep into a Charlotte's Web review. I also feel like the movie is a bit too long. Get rid of the crows, you don't need them. Get rid of or slim down other scenes, like the scene where Charlotte's making her web. Sure, it looks nice, but it lasts for like over a minute, and I feel like you could have it shortened to like 20 or 30 seconds. There's also several fart jokes, which you know I have to take points off for. I don't think they're funny, and these movie studios need to stop including them in every movie. They ruin perfectly good scenes or films. But besides that, I don't really have much else to say. It's a pretty good faithful book adaptation. I think on the Zacker Attacker blah blah, it's getting a 7 out of 10. So you can take that and add it to your little diary or notebook that you have. But I'm hungry now, so I think I'm gonna go make myself a sandwich.
Let's see what we got in here.